Welcome back. Junkies on 106.7 The Fan. It's Lurch, GB, JP. Joined now on the Mitsubishi Electric Heating Hotline by Dane Brugler from CBSSports.com, where you can check out his latest mock draft. What's happening, Dane?
Good morning, guys. It's, as much as people want to talk playoffs and everything else, sometimes it's time to talk NFL draft.
Talk about the draft.
Well, especially if you're here in D.C. and you have a 3-10 team in the Washington Redskins.
Yeah, and you might have a quarterback issue. I'm just looking at your draft here. I don't want to race through it too much, but you've got quarterbacks 1-2 this morning. You got Mariota 1, Winston 2. I'd love to hear your evaluation of those guys. And I'll tell you, after seeing the way Robert struggled and some of these other guys who come from spread offenses, et cetera, I'm surprised you have Mariota still so high, number 1 overall.
Well, yeah, and that's going to be an interesting dynamic with Marcus Mariota, obviously coming from that Oregon offense, that spread. That's really the biggest question mark with Marcus is how does he transition to the pro scheme? But when you look at Mariota, the traits, both physically and mentally, he has everything you want from the size, the arm strength, the athleticism. He's got a little Johnny Manziel to him with the way he can improvise on the move. Off the field, the character is off the charts. And, there's a lot of things there that, you could have said the same about, maybe a Robert Griffin, similar when he came out. But, it's tough because, he will be compared to RG3. That will come up, I'm sure, just because of the offense and that transition. Is he going to be able to hold up physically when he, wants to tuck and run? He's going to take some hits. So that's going to be an interesting part of the evaluation. But at the end of the day, when you're talking about the traits, I think that's what's going to make Mariota so appealing. And then also with Jameis Winston, he's not that, obviously that no-brainer, quarterback that's going to transition as well, just because the maturity. That's really the biggest question mark with the Florida State quarterback. On the field, he's just so natural as a quarterback, as a passer. He anticipates throwing windows. He knows how to throw guys open. The footwork, the pocket presence. So much about him on the field is just so natural. The game comes easy to him. But also this year, he's thrown 17 interceptions. He has 27 interceptions the last 2 years. So if he does, assuming he does go to the NFL draft this year and he does go in the first round, he'd be the first quarterback in a while to be throwing, that many interceptions. Matt Ryan had 29 interceptions his final 2 years at Boston College. So, it's not many quarterbacks with that many picks go that early. But with Winston, really it just comes down to the interview process. How does he do when he's sitting down in a room with a general manager, with head coaches, and teams really grill him about his maturity, his off-field actions, who he is as a person, what type of person are we getting on our football team. So really that's what it's going to come down to. And you look at the top of the draft this year, and right now there are 5 2-11 teams, and then Washington the only 3-10 team. But Tampa Bay, Tennessee, the New York Jets, those 3 teams are picking ahead of Washington right now. 3 teams that you think would have to look at the quarterback position pretty strongly.
All right, just 2 quick questions. I know the other guys have questions for you. On Winston, somebody that I know and respect, he says his question, forget about the off-the-field stuff, is he thinks his release is too long, and that's going to haunt him. I don't know. Do you have that opinion? And then 2, can you just give us some background, because this is kind of your thing. Give me some guys from that spread offense that have been successful and made the transition. I mean, how many guys are we really talking about that have actually done it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. The elongated delivery is something that is not ideal. As natural as the game comes to Jameis Winston, he's far from a polished product. There's still a lot of things that you don't like about him. The internal clock is something he needs to improve. He's going to make a few decisions each game that really make you scratch your head, and then that delivery is definitely not ideal. It's something that you want to see him clean up. Get the ball out a little quicker. And then, talking about the spread offenses, it's tough because now in the college game, almost every, or I'd say probably 90% runs some form of a spread offense. We're not going to have these every year we're not going to have these Andrew Lucks that come from that pro style and really, check every box that you want. So evaluators have to make more of a, assumption and look at more of, okay, well, they have these traits. How does that project? And so you look at maybe a Colin Kaepernick and, that looked good up until this season. Now, Colin's having some struggles. So there definitely are, a lot of assumptions to be made with these spread quarterbacks.
All right, so in your latest mock at 6 with the Redskins, you have them taking Brandon Scherf, the big tackle out of Iowa. He's 6'5". I think he's about 325 pounds. He's probably considered, I don't know, one of the top 2 tackles in the class. I know Leonard Williams, defensive guy, but is this a no-brainer? The guy at Stanford is very good too. Is this a no-brainer here at 6, considering the problems they've had with their offensive line, especially on the right side, if Scherf was available?
I don't think it's a no-brainer, but I think it's a very safe, you can't go wrong with this type of pick. And I think, all the Redskins have to do is look across their division, see what the Cowboys have done on their offensive line, really invested first-round picks onto that offensive line and see how that has, paid dividends. And so if they're in that position where, the top 2 quarterbacks are off the board, because, really this is a below average quarterback class. Mariota, Winston, I think those 2 guys will be off the board somewhere in the top probably 5 to 7 picks. But after that, there's a big drop off. So if the Redskins are picking at 6 and the top 2 quarterbacks are off the board, I think offensive line is obviously a position they'll look at. And a guy like Brandon Scherf's a very, quote-unquote safe pick. There's no such thing as a sure thing when it comes to the draft. But Scherf is a very, very safe pick. He can play guard. He can play tackle. Not many holes to his game. Just a guy that you know what you're getting with him.
Talking to Dane Brugler from CBSSports.com. You can check out his latest mock draft at CBSSports.com. Talk to me about Landon Collins, who's a safety from Alabama. Some people here in D.C. think they need to shore up the secondary before they shore up the offensive line. A lot of issues. Who would you compare him to?
Everyone's looking for a safety these days. Everyone wants that safety that can, come up and play the run, but also play the deep half of the field and cover tight ends and wide receivers if needed. So I think Landon Collins is going to be a very attractive prospect for a lot of teams picking in that top 15 area, and especially just like the quarterbacks, it's not a very strong safety class. There's a good chance Landon Collins will be the only safety drafted in that first round. So, you watch him in Alabama. He plays both free and strong safety, man, zone coverage. He's not elite in every area, but it's tough to find weaknesses to his game. Coming up against a run, he attacks downhill like a missile. Really, the biggest kind of question is some of his instincts in pass coverage. He needs to improve, and I think that's going to come with reps. That's going to come with more experience. But he has some movement skills that remind you of a cornerback. So Landon Collins, a guy that I think can come in and contribute right away. Obviously, Alabama, you look at some of the safeties they've produced in the Nick Saban era, haven't really panned out that much. So I think Landon Collins, you're looking at a guy that's maybe not that slam dunk, obvious top 10 pick, but when you isolate his traits, what he does best, those strengths, it's going to be hard to pass a guy like that up if there is a need for safety and you're picking somewhere in those top 10, top 15 picks.
Dane, appreciate the time. Dane Brugler, CBSSports.com. Thanks, buddy.
All right, thanks, guys. Anytime.
All right, we get him on as we get closer here.
How sad is it we're talking NFL draft in December?
Yeah, we still got 3 games to play.
Probably could have done it 3 games ago.
Oh, easily. I think I would go offensive line and then secondary. But maybe you can get a big time free agent and that'll ease. That's really it doesn't really matter. I don't care how they do it. Draft one, pick up a legit starter in free agency.
Yeah.
And then those are your top 2 needs. Offensive line and secondary.
I will say this, they would never draft him this high because it's not a position of need. But Amari Cooper, whoever gets him.
That's the receiver.
He's a receiver out of. He's one of the best receivers I've ever seen play at the college level. He's so good.
You've seen a lot of great ones in college.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Randy Moss was off the charts, but Amari Cooper.
Bryant was great.
Amari Cooper is better than Des Bryant, in my opinion. But Amari Cooper is going to be a stud. Problem is, he's going to go to a bad team, So he probably gets buried there for the first couple of years.
I don't know, man. Look at the rookie receivers right now that are making an impact.
Mike Evans.
Even on bad teams. Mike Evans is one.
Yeah.
Sammy Watkins is another. Martavis Bryant is another. Odell Beckham Jr.
Mm-hmm.
That's like the easiest position to break in and be an impact player in.
Well, that
he's
running back.
Well, he's going to
Back
be
in the
one.
day.
He's going to be one of those guys.
I mean, there are about 5 or 6 guys right now that are rookie receivers who are making an impact on
Don't
their
tempt
teams.
Dan and the boys to get a receiver. We have much bigger needs.
No.
What he's going to be tempted by is because I could see some of these other teams getting wins down the stretch and us finishing. They're going to be tempted by Jameis.
Stay away.
All right, we got to get out of here.
Stay
For Cakes
away.
is home. EB Lurch, I'm JP. We're the Junkies. See you tomorrow. Grant and Danny are up next on The Fan.
106.7. 106.7. The Fan.